As a DM, you can never get enough NPC miniatures. Here's why. Your party enters a town and notices several townsfolk congregating. These unarmed commoners seem to be in high spirits, and one of them even welcomes your party to the town. Alright, looks like one of those guys has a sword. I'm going to try to steal it. None of these townsfolk actually have weapons, so there's no visible sword for you to steal. As I just mentioned, all these townsfolk are unarmed. These minis are just meant to represent. And rolled a 20 on my sleight of hand. So I guess the blade is mine. Alright, you reach into one of the peasants' hats and you pull out the Sword of Gryffindor. Some players are very visual, and theater of the mind doesn't work for everyone. For that reason, having a set of minis that are unmistakably NPCs is always a good idea. Also, how cool would it be to integrate passive NPC minis into your wargame somehow? Peasants caught in a crossfire, villagers running for cover. Come on, that'd be sick. Alright, let's make some more minis. As usual, I'm going to start this build off with some paper clips to make the armatures. It's just a super easy way to do it, and they're a convenient length for it. You can check out my first video that I posted showing how to make the armatures. But I ended up with some pretty cool ones, I think. And then I started using some Sculpty and some Super Sculpty for these guys. Kind of just started with the regular Sculpty and tried to make a thin layer over the entire armature. I know there's easier ways to do this, but this is kind of just the way that I stumbled across, and didn't have to worry about buying green stuff or anything like that. On this guy I tried to use some of the Sculpty Firm, but what I found was that for whatever reason it wouldn't adhere to the paper clips. So like this is a case where professional sculptors, they'd throw down a layer of green stuff or something else to help it adhere. What I ended up doing is just did a 1-to-1 ratio of the Firm and the regular Sculpty, and got to a decently sticky consistency. A couple times I tried to use the Firm, and for whatever reason for the paper clips it just didn't work. The regular Sculpty seems to be superior for making things straight on a paper clip. Another option you can do for thicker minis is probably put down a really thin layer of the regular Sculpty and then put it in the oven, and then make another layer. I just obviously didn't have the patience for this. These are just some NPCs, so I think the Firm would definitely be easier to work with for sculpting like muscle details and things like that. It would just, obviously it's firmer, so you can hold details pretty well, but I think that for this application it wouldn't be best. I probably will start using it later on when I get some kind of base layer down. And these sculpting tools are really awesome. They're I think it's like a silicone tip, and you can really kind of push the clay around pretty easily. So I'll put a link to those in the description if anyone's interested in getting some. For this guy, I just wanted him to be a little bit more filled out and have kind of a big round belly. So I threw some aluminum foil there. Alright, sweet. I got him looking like Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas, if anyone's seen that. Kind of just throwing chunks on, and with like I said, with the Sculpty, the regular Sculpty, it's much easier to put on chunks segment by segment and then smooth them together. At least with these tools, it's got enough softness and stickiness to really wrap around the paper clip and hold on to it. Kind of just experimenting with some hands. Obviously I'm not going to make the differentiated fingers here, but for now I'm kind of just making the fist and then making kind of a thumb and blending them together, and then grooving out the fist for some fingers. And just like the arms and the legs, what I did for the jaw is I get the noggin on there as like a sphere, and then make like a little bit of a sausage shape with the with the clay, throw on that jaw, and then blend it in. And usually the space between the two, if I can leave a little space, it works out for a good groove for the mouth. With this character, I kind of wanted to experiment with some sort of shawl, and I knew I wanted to sculpt that, so I kind of just put that layer and then made a bit of a groove around it. For whatever reason, with this character, I really had my heart set on making them an elf of some sort. Like, I imagined an elf herbalist, and I really wanted to get those ears on, but I should have known that without incorporating those ears into the armature, I was very lucky that even one of these was able to stick on initially, but they're just too fragile, and I'm going to have to kind of improve off that over time. I don't think it'll be too difficult to make these a lot better. Here's what I came up with minimal effort and I think about a half hour to do all of these or so, maybe an hour. And as you can see, I sculpted the feet to be, right onto the cork that they're based on, and that is an issue. First one I had no problem getting off. The second one is another story.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
How could this happen to me? I made my mistakes, got nowhere to run.
Ooh. Okay, so with that guy completely mangled, I decided, alright, butter knife's the best way to go. This would be impossible if you didn't actually include the feet in the armature, if you just tried to sculpt on top, but yeah, this worked out pretty well. There's Rocket trying to steal him. Kind of used the butter knife. That was pretty helpful. In the future, though, I'm definitely not going to sculpt all the way to the base. I'm going to leave a little space so that I can more easily grab them out with little pliers. Anyway, I was kind of able to sort of give him a bit of a repair job there, but not really that good. Throw those in the oven.
"15 minutes later.
I've got some magic oven mitts.
After 15 minutes in the oven, it was pretty much good to go. Looking decent. This plant right here is called an American pokeweed. It's really common in the area of New England that I'm in, and I love the stalks. The stalks dry out and they're hollow and they're brittle, and they're perfect for sticking the little paper clips into and then using it to spray paint, but you can also use like whatever you want. I just didn't want to have to use some kind of sticky adherent to like base it on there, and I didn't want to have to cut the paper clips at this point yet. So I kind of just take the paper clips, and eventually I figured out it works best with a plier. You get some pliers in there, and then you just grab the paper clip, jam it right in there, and then you have something to hold. And yeah, I'll probably say this a million times, but there's definitely easier ways to do a lot of this stuff. It's just, these are the ways I came up with, and I had a lot of fun doing it, so that's all that matters, really, right? Here's the minis all based. By the way, I don't know why I was wearing gloves yet. I think it was just because I was getting ready to spray paint. Got ahead of myself there. But yeah, then I hit these guys with a flat black primer, And I think this wasn't even an army painter. This was just like regular hardware store, like bonds to plastic type primer. And yeah, primer game getting a little bit stronger there. Hitting it with a bunch of thin coats. And I came back like, I think 30 minutes later, did another thin coat. Just like in my last build, I started out with doing a base coating of like a skin tone, and I tried to make it a little bit more generic here so I could go lighter or darker depending on, you know, whatever I ended up doing there. Hit them all with the same base color and then kind of work from there. You might be asking at this point, why didn't I just spray prime in white or like brown or like a skin tone? And the answer there is, well, I don't really know. I mean, there's a few benefits to doing it this way. This is probably the least convenient way to do it, but essentially the multiple thin layers help me even out any like weird bumps or like holes or anything like that. And the other thing is that I didn't happen to have any type of primer that was, you know, the only primer I ever invested in was black. My plan here was to kind of draw out the actual like tunics and the robes and everything like that, and then cut them out and just paste them right on, but didn't really work the way I planned. It helped a little bit, but I found easier ways to do it as the project went on. The cool thing is with these little droppers, which I love these droppers, they make it super easy to use this diluted PVA substance that I had in there. I think I used like tacky glue and just water diluted. And together those two, it was just really easy to apply it to saturate the cloth and then to also like press it in a little bit or make like wrinkles and everything like that. So I would highly recommend using one of these little droppers. I might even throw one of those into the description if anyone's trying to get some of those. In this case I used this little razor and some my tweezers too to try to press the paper towel in. And I thought the paper towel was kind of cool because even when it dried, it maintained a little bit of a texture to it, which made it look like a linen shirt or something like that. And then it was really easy to apply some wrinkles and things like that, and yeah, worked out pretty good. The other thing that's kind of cool is if you paint it while it's still a little bit wet, it can kind of, I don't know, it almost helps, like the paper towel itself like tries to absorb up the paint if it's somewhat diluted, and it works out really good. Only problem is you can have some issues where if it gets too watery, the base coat underneath will kind of blend with the cloth on the outside. So for that, I usually kind of, you know, I try to plan for any change that might have. This one's pretty easy. I ended up using the paper dress and then the tunic on top, or whatever the shawl was already kind of built into the sculpt, which made it kind of, I think, a cool blend. So essentially the spark notes of what I learned was paper works, paper towel is easier. Again, this dropper bottle just coming in clutch, being super convenient to press things in, and then you can let it dry, come back an hour later, or whatever you want to do. It works out really well, I think. I think this is just way easier right now, at least at the stage I'm at, than trying to sculpt like a t-shirt on a character. I just don't think. I think that this makes it a lot more clear where the body is and where the shirt is. Took a little string there. I think this is from like a tea bag or something, and then I, painted it brown. Gave him some pants there and shoes. This guy had all sorts of problems getting him to look halfway decent, but ultimately what I did for the pants to try to help with the leg situation was just wrap a thin layer of brown paper towel, like a strip of it, wrap it up like a bandage on both legs, and then, you know, after the paint and everything dried, it kind of looked like a uniform piece of cloth. This is the part that I thought was pretty cool. I was able to make like a little bit of a purse or a satchel, and again, this character was meant to be like kind of a herbalist or whatever. I intended them to be some kind of shopkeeper maybe, or someone just trading, like you could buy a potion from maybe, and satchel kind of sells the part a little bit. Fun fact about me, when I was a kid, I thought it was a cool style to wear Indiana Jones satchel. Don't worry, I was pretty young at the time. So I've done it a whole bunch of different ways here. You can paint on the clothes, you can sculpt in the clothing, you know, the more dangly stuff, and then you can also like use paper towels or paper or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to do it here. So kind of just try to make a mix of different strategies to kind of see what I like best. I think too the best way to learn is to try to build NPCs, because it doesn't really matter if they look a little bit funky. No one's gonna really care. No one's paying too much attention to the NPCs. So there's what I got for, you know, this first stage of the build. A good indication of how long it actually takes me to put these together is to look at the weather conditions at the time that I filmed anything outdoors. And as you can see back when I was priming that, it was still like summertime or something. I don't know, it was a long time ago. The problem was here, I ended up with like 8 hours of footage or something from all the different angles and everything, and I just trying to chop all that up into like 10 minutes is just not really very easy. Unfortunately, the editing process took me so long that
looks like it's going to be a two-parter.
Next time on D20 Crafts.